Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 26 of our How to Become a Doctor podcast. So, we've got a special guest here today. If you haven't checked out our other episodes, definitely encourage you to do that. But just to remind you, my name is Mr. Duras, and we have Mr. Bowen here as well. I'll introduce our guest, but we are the pre-health advisors at LSU. So, I just want to help you guys in your journey to medical school and interview people that are along the way ahead of you in some form or fashion. So, today we have if you can figure out this puzzle, we have Dr. Jonathan Cuccia with us, who's in medical school. So that may confuse you. He's a doctor of philosophy already, but working on getting that second doctorate. So we're going to hear about his journey and all that. So anyway, why don't you, Dr. Cuccia, why don't you introduce just yourself a little bit and just share kind of where you are at in life right now?
Yeah, so thank you, Matt, for having me on, first of all. But so my name is Jonathan Cuccia. I'm a third-year medical student from LSU New Orleans currently. I'm doing my rotations in Baton Rouge. But as Matt said, I am an LSU Biological Engineering Fast Path student, which is a 10-year BS, MD, PhD program that LSU used to have. I don't think they offer it quite the same anymore. But I'm currently in year 9 of 10. So that means I finished my bachelor's in biological engineering. I did my first 2 years of medical school in New Orleans, and then I did 3 years getting my PhD in biological engineering back at LSU Baton Rouge. And now I'm in my 3rd year of medical school, and then I just have the rest of this year, 4th year of medical school left, and then I match into residency.
So you're saying you just love school?
Yes, yeah.
That's a lot. It's funny. Sometimes I talk to students and they're like, I don't know if I want to be a doctor. It's a lot of school. And there's people like you, they're like, oh, I want to do extra. So I know it's been a journey, but looking to hear about it more here. But I mean, wow, that's a long journey, but it feels nice to be where you are right now. So, but yeah, I just want to kind of flash back. So, just, growing up, or whenever, when was it that medicine really became interesting to you?
So when I was in high school, I've always been interested in science, and throughout my school years from first grade all the way through to high school. But when I was in high school, I really had a good science teacher, and she really helped me, conceptualize the fact that maybe I could go to med school or go to that school. That was also on the list when I was in high school. And when I was a senior, you really try to think about, well, what do I want to be for the rest of my life? So I started thinking about that, and I really talked to a lot of my teachers and tried to decide what I wanted to do. I was fairly successful in high school, and so I thought that it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. And then I applied to LSU doing biological engineering, and because I always liked math and science, I was pretty good at calculus, so I thought that being an engineer was something I might want to do just to see. And then so I applied to LSU for biological engineering and a couple other schools for similar degree programs, but I got an email from Dr. David Constant asking if I wanted to be considered for the first year of this new program called the LSU BE Fast Path program. And so that was the program I described earlier. I said, yes, I'd like to be considered. And then I got accepted. I was like, okay, I'm going to LSU.
Cool.
So
awesome. And here we are in year 9 of 10, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay. So yeah, you talked a little bit about the bioengineering major, obviously, the math science part, but, as you just look back, what was that like, being an engineering major, also being pre-med at the same time? Obviously yours was, fast track, but just share about that.
Yeah, so the biological engineering program at LSU Baton Rouge specifically, I would highly recommend. I loved my time there. I made lifelong friends. It was a little bit smaller when I was there. It's growing every single year just because it's such a good, well-rounded major. You get a lot of experience in all the different engineering types. I took mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering classes. Obviously, your focus is more biology, especially when you're doing the pre-med route. I took the organic chemistry and the microbiology and biochemistry. The prerequisites you need to go to medical school, not all those things are required to get a biological engineering degree, but they just add in those few classes that you need. So it's a good major for pre-meds. A lot of people want to do that who go into biological engineering. I love the department when I was there. Um, I can't say enough good things about it. They really helped me get to where I am for sure.
Right. Yeah. Like you mentioned, you are doing some extra classes that maybe all pre-med students don't have to do, but obviously some of that knowledge, now you have with you, the engineering mindset, as well bringing to medicine. So that's awesome. Well, great. Well, thanks for sharing that. So, obviously you did that. We kind of want to, go on to your, first 2 years of med school. I know, a few years ago now, but, why don't you just share, the question I kind of had, well, first of all, let's just kind of back up and say why MD, PhD. So, what was it about, not just the degree, but also you're interested in research? What was it? Why was that appealing to you?
I wasn't quite sure I wanted to do research when I was in high school. I'd never done it before. I did a little bit of clinic work when I was in high school. My last years in high school, I worked over the summer in a family health clinic, and so I knew I was interested enough in doing that. You don't get the best exposure as a high school student shadowing, but I knew I was interested in that, and then just liking math, liking science, wanting to do engineering, and so research was kind of a foreign world to me. I like my science experiments and science class, in
Right.
biology, dissecting a frog and stuff. That was fun. But the summer after I graduated from high school, I did a research program at Tulane called the Emerging Scholars Program.
Mhm.
And it was at the Tulane School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine. And you spend a summer there doing research and learning about environmental research and toxicology. My study was a toxicology experiment, really.
Okay.
So I got to work like directly with faculty there, and I had a really good time. I learned a lot. I enjoyed my time in the lab, and so that's really that was my first exposure to real benchtop research, and I really enjoyed it then. And so I was like, this is something that I could see myself doing further.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So you see, it makes sense. You had that exposure, right before college, and sounds unique. And I think before we get to med school, just wanted to hear: is there anything else in your undergrad experience that you felt like maybe helped prepare you for medical school outside of your classes?
So yeah, I was a 3-year member of the Tiger Band. Those are all 3 years I was in undergrad. I played alto saxophone.
Okay.
Um, Again, great camaraderie, good friends. Some of my best friends. I'm going to their wedding in April. I've been to a few other of my saxophone friends' weddings. So I mean, you stay with stay with your friends for a long time, and you stay in contact. Um, that's one thing that I really liked about Tiger Band was it gave me a really good group of friends that I could always like talk to and bounce ideas off of. A lot of them were engineering majors as well, a lot of music majors. So you see a lot of different people and you get a lot of close friends.
Okay, great. Yeah, like you said, it's neat. Obviously you're, studying engineering and all that, but I've seen a common theme in your story is, your communities, in bioengineering, in Tiger Band, obviously, medical school, being its own community, and that's, I think, something that maybe students don't realize as just such a critical aspect. Having other people around you to support you in the process, is huge for sure.
Yeah,
So,
I
um,
was just going to say lone wolves definitely don't survive in the long game. And med school is definitely a long game. College is a long game. And you just have to have people who are around you to support, family. If you don't have family, then friends. Or if you're really, really lucky, you get both. And so,
yeah, that's great. And obviously having using the other side of the brain there with the music, being able to maybe rest your engineering side and go play some alto sax, that's nice. And I think, neat for you to have those different perspectives. Sure, sure will make you a better doctor. So, okay. But yes, let's, thinking about your first 2 years in medical school, what were some things that maybe surprised you that was different than you thought it would be?
so the first 2 years of medical school are really structured. You take the same classes as everybody else your year. Uh, at the same exact time. There's no sections. You don't get to pick your own schedule. You basically go to class from 8 to noon. That's kind of Monday through Friday. The different classes, have like different days you'll go to, for an hour, 2 hours, or anatomy lab, which is I think about 3 to 4 hours every day. That your like first semester of med school, at least at LSU New Orleans. I'm sure other med
Mhm.
schools do it differently, but that's the only med school I really have experience with. So that's kind of set in stone. You don't really get to pick what you do, but after my first year, um, I did a medical student summer research program as well, just to make sure that research was really something that I was interested in. And I got to work with a faculty at LSU New Orleans and do a summer research project as well. And then you present that at medical student research day. And so that was a good experience to do another poster presentation, just to have that under my belt, work on your speaking, work on your poster making. It's a good experience to have.
Great. Okay. Yeah, and like you mentioned, that is a big difference where you're at, LSU undergrad, and you pick your schedule you want, the classes you want, your researching professors, you don't want morning class and night class, you're in different, and then to show up and like you said, everything's set for you. But then it's nice to know you have some options, like, hey, okay, I want to add in this, for the summers, I want to add this in. So that's neat.
Right.
So
And there's some electives that you can choose to take. There's like medical Spanish. Some people go on a like a service trip, a medical service trip down to somewhere in Latin America, I believe. Um, they did that. The medical Spanish kids could have done that. And then there's
okay,
some other electives, but yeah, I was going to
great.
say something about second year. Oh, second year, you get a little bit more clinical experience. You get to go to the hospital a little bit more. You get to do your preceptorship and your longitudinal selective, which are basically like you get to pick from a list of specialties and you get to go shadow them a little bit. But it's nowhere near what happens at third year. In third year, you're in the hospital every single day. It's basically like residency preparedness. And then you also still have to take tests in third year. But the first 2 years, there's no homework really. I mean, the expectation of you is just that you study, and then you have to be prepared for your exam throughout the semester, throughout the class. Really, the classes kind of stagger throughout the semester. You'd be starting a new one right in the middle of the semester and then finishing it in a month. It's a lot different of a schedule for sure.
Okay, yeah, sounds like a big adjustment. So, oh yeah, so you moved down to New Orleans, you did your 2 years there, and then you came back here to Baton Rouge and did your PhD. So, yeah, obviously we're summing up your years in sentences, which is tough. But why don't you just share a little bit about, what it was like getting a PhD?
Yeah, so getting a PhD is even different from medical school. It's different from undergrad. It's a lot more like a job. Medical school is also like a job, but this is a job where you don't really, you can take classes. You don't have to take as many classes as when you're an undergrad full time. I think it's 6 or 9 hours a semester, maybe nine, um, for a grad student. But the expectation is that you're also working in the lab, you're writing, you're researching, you're reading papers, you're presenting in forums and things like that. You can go to conferences and present like oral presentations and also poster presentations. So those are things that, again, like are helping you gain that experience into, in the future, becoming somebody who goes into industry and does research there, or goes into academics and becomes a professor and a research professor. There's a lot of different avenues you can take with the PhD as well. But so that's kind of different. It's more like undergrad in the fact that you can pick your schedule. You can choose what classes you take when, so you can like put classes off till the next semester. You can um, you can choose what to take in what order usually. I mean, unless there's prerequisites or something.
Yeah, and I know you're in a unique program with the fast track and the fact that your PhD was back here, not at the med campus. But
Mhm.
just with thinking about pursuing 2 degrees, two terminal degrees, like what advice do you have for a student interested in that, that's interested in the MD PhD?
I would say definitely think about it long and hard. Like I said, it's a long road. It's definitely not for everybody, and that's okay. I think that it doesn't make you any less of a person to get a PhD or an MD or none at all. It's all about individual. you know, do I see myself doing this for the rest of my life? And that is the important question that everybody has to ask themselves. And you should really reflect on that for a long time. It's not a split decision that I think that anybody should make. Um, but I can say that I've enjoyed it, and I think that there are people out there who do enjoy it just like I did. Um, they're different. The PhD
Mm,
is different. The MD is different. You have to be very adaptable to different circumstances, especially because most MD PhDs you flip back and forth. A lot of them you do your PhD right in the middle of medical school. You don't finish one and then do the other one. Uh, you have to be very adaptable as a person to be able to flip flop back and forth between the two different styles of learning and you know different types of school.
right. And then thinking about your cohort when you did your 1 and 2 now, I guess
Their
we're
second year, second year residents.
right. So they're second year residents, you're seeing what they're up to in their life. And then now you're like behind them, but you're obviously already you're carrying this other degree you got while they've been. So that's a different, that's a unique thing to, like you said, to consider, okay, am I, have that patience to be able to join another resident class after that. So that's thanks for sharing that. And obviously now you're at our favorite campus here in Baton Rouge, the formerly the Baton Rouge branch campus. Now I know y'all renamed the Baton Rouge Regional Campus, which I know for you guys out there that follow us, we do our narrative medicine program where we do partner with that campus there. And for y'all that don't know, just like Jonathan, you can do your 1 and 2 in New Orleans and your 3 and 4 here in Baton Rouge. So that's obviously what you were sharing about. Now so what's that been like? Third year, but specifically also third year here in Baton Rouge.
I really love it. Like I'm a big guy for smaller class sizes. You only have about 25 to 30, I think, kids at the Baton Rouge Regional Campus versus about, the rest of them are in New Orleans. So out of 200, that's probably about 170 people trying to rotate in and out of New Orleans all the time. Um, so you really get more one-on-one interaction with the faculty and the people who you're learning from, and I really appreciate that. And um, when I was doing my PhD here in Baton Rouge, I decided to do the Baton Rouge Regional Campus mainly because I formed a life here. I got married when I was in grad school. We bought a house, and I didn't want to move back to New Orleans. I had friends here. I found a church here. I really, I've been flourishing in Baton Rouge over the last few years, and I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, glad we have that option for you to be here, and no, it's great. So, but yeah, so what's it been like? I know you're on a rotation right now. So what has it been like? In third year, flipping between specialties. Like, what's that experience like?
It's a change again. It's another, you got to be adaptable. So, specifically, I'm on my pediatrics rotation right now. I'm finishing up this week, doing a sports medicine subspecialty for this week. My exam is Friday. So, in the way third year works is you do your core clinical clerkships, you do internal medicine, surgery, neurology, pediatrics, family medicine, OB-GYN, and then psychiatry. And so those are your core medicine clerkships. And you can kind of pick about when you want to do the blocks. There are 4 blocks, and you have to kind of pick which ones you want to do when. But that's really the only say you get. You don't really get to say who your teacher is or what clinics you're going to get to go to. And each clerkship has their own schedule. And so for internal medicine, I might be doing something for 2 weeks. I might be doing something for a month. And then people are rotating in and out constantly off your team. And then for surgery, you have subspecialty. Everybody picks their own subspecialty, and then you do general surgery. And so the schedule is always changing. It's always different. There are a lot of moving parts. And on pediatrics, you do things for maybe 3 days, 3 days to a week. That's all you get for each thing. So you do some inpatient stuff, you do some outpatient stuff, and then at the end, you get to decide what you want to be for the rest of your life. And that decision really is happening soon for a lot of people if it hasn't
Right.
happened already. So between now, kind of March timeframe to the end of the year, you're really trying to think about what what residency you want to apply to, because applications, I believe it's called the ERAS, the application system. Yes, I know a lot of you, applying to medical school or dealing with the AMCAS, the applications don't ever stop. So you're gonna apply again to residency, and then you're gonna apply again to get a job or fellowship or something. And so it's ERAS, or ERAS, some people call it. To apply to residency, that's when you really have to nail down what specialty you want to be, and that happens in about September. Uh, so for me, in about 7 months, I think that ERAS finally gets sent out to programs.
Yeah, and then
So,
you're
Jonathan,
you
you mentioned so you have an exam Friday for the pediatric rotation. So what are they like? Is it a practical? Is it a written exam? What are they?
Almost all of your tests in medical school are going to be just multiple choice tests. There's very few written. There was a written portion of anatomy. There was a practical portion for anatomy when I took it. I can't speak for how it is now. It's been 5 or 6 years since I was there, but yeah, they're basically all on the computer, multiple choice tests, and they're all timed. So we get about I think it's 110 questions in 2 hours and 45 minutes have been all my shelf exams so far. So the ones for this year. But they can be whatever the professors want them to be in the first 2 years. They kind of pick them.
So you're saying our students that think the MCAT's gonna be their last standardized test they ever have to take, then just get used to it, huh?
There's a monster after the MCAT called Step 1, and that's what you take after your first two preclinical years, and that encompasses a lot of basic science knowledge. So a lot of your biochemistry, a lot of your microbiology, some clinical, all of those things have clinical correlations with them. But so you have Step 1 after your first 2 years, and then you have Step 2 after your third year, and then you take Step 3 in the beginning, usually the beginning part of your residency. So there are 3 more board exams, and then you become board certified in whatever specialty you're in every 10 years. So as soon as you finish residency, you're supposed to take the board exam, and then at least that's how I understand it. There's always caveats. I haven't been there yet, but that's what I've heard.
So you took Step 1 before you started your PhD portion of your training, right?
So that's right around the time COVID was really going off, and so I decided to postpone my tests it was like in the middle of my PhD is when I took Step 1. But yes, you usually would take it between second and third year. In the short break you have between those two, that's when the majority of people take it.
So okay, so we got your life story up until now, and we're excited to see where you're going. But I wanted to leave a few minutes here, just for maybe you to flash back to young Jonathan, who was on this campus at LSU as an undergrad, which I know you were just here recently as graduate student. But just thinking back, if you were able to give yourself some advice, and these are hard things to say, but just what are some things for our students that are preparing for medical school that you'd want to share from the other side or from the inside?
That's a good question. I think that if I could talk to myself, when I was 18, 19, 20, I would say that perseverance is what's important. You're going to get knocked down. My dynamics professor in college said dynamics is a lot like boxing. You get hit, but you got to get back up. So it's kind of the same thing. You're going to get hit by life, by school, by extracurriculars. You're going to get denied a job, or you're going to get a bad grade in a class, or your friends aren't going to want to hang out with you, something along those lines. You just got to know how to come back from that. And I think that's really what's important. And that shows that no matter what, you're going to get to your goal. And so whatever that goal is, if it's going to med school, great, you're going to get there. You just take your time, get through it. And if there are stumbling blocks along the way, you just have to learn to overcome those things, and that makes you an even stronger applicant, makes you an even stronger person. And so that's probably what I would tell myself, and I feel like I've done a pretty good job of that so far, because it definitely hasn't been the most perfect road, but you just learn to roll with the punches.
Yeah, it makes me think of that Mike Tyson quote, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth,
Yeah.
and it's, the boxing analogy, right? Like, when life hits you, absolutely. It's that perseverance. And I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, why don't you just have a little more time? I know they talk a lot about narrative medicine, even at your program there. So how's that conversation been? What's your thoughts on narrative medicine?
I love the program. I've had my little buddy, so it's like a big buddy, little buddy program with some of the students at LSU in the science department. And so I've had them come and shadow. We got to go to a couple of vascular surgeries, which was really cool. He got to even scrub in and watch the surgery from up close. And then he also got to come and shadow on my pediatrics rotation. We got to see some babies in the morning, and that was really, I thought it was a good experience because I didn't get anything like that when I was in undergrad. I think that it's definitely worthwhile, if not to help prepare them for medical school, let them know earlier that medical school isn't something they'd like to do, because it's important for people who think they want to do medicine to learn whether or not it's for them, because the last place you want to learn that is in the anatomy lab after you've already gotten into medical school and you're doing it and you're like, man, I really don't like this. I want to go do something else. That's the last place you want to learn that. You would definitely want to learn that early. And so I think that it's a really important program for both of those two reasons.
Okay. Well, great. Well, Robbie, anything you want to say before we close out or ask? Or Jonathan, you want to mention anything else?
Well, I'm just curious for myself. Like, so what was your dissertation on your PhD? What did you do?
Yeah. So I had the wonderful privilege of working with Dr. Elizabeth Martin in the biological engineering program. She's no longer at LSU. She's at Tulane. But she's a breast cancer specialist, a breast cancer biologist. And I worked closely with Dr. Adam Melvin from the chemical engineering department and on some microfluidics projects. So my dissertation was basically, it was on metastatic breast cancer, ER positive metastatic breast cancer, and how shear stress affects basically the genotype and the phenotype of metastatic breast cancer cells.
Great. So obviously great. You could, really tie in your medical interests, especially like, on the engineering field, but, right there, within medicine. So that's awesome. Neat. Well, great. Well, I know this didn't sum up your whole life and everything you have to say, but, I do just want to thank you for the short time to join us and for making time in your busy schedule. But anyway, we definitely wish you the best just in your future endeavors. And thanks again for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me.